My name is Maria Abreu, and today I will talk about Greek philosophy in the classical spirit era. The first thing you need to know is that the civilization of ancient Greece produced classics in almost all genres of creative expression, such as literature, philosophy, music, the visual arts, and architecture. Greek philosophy. In the ancient world, people saw themselves at the mercy of forces they could not comprehend. Natural disasters such as earthquakes and floods were commonly interpreted by priests and shamans as expressions of divine anger that required mitigation by way of magic and ritual. To such supernatural explanations of the unknown, the Greeks offered an alternative. During the 6th century before Christ existed, a small group of thinkers, whom we call philosophers, found new ways of explaining the workings of nature based in careful observation, systematic analysis, and the exercise of reason. Instead of making nature the object of worship, they made it the object of study, thus laying the foundations for Western scientific and philosophic inquiry. In effect, Greek philosophy made the speculative leap from supernatural to natural explanations of the unknown, and further, from the examination of matter to an exploration of the knowing mind. Naturalist philosophy, the Presocratics. The earliest of the Greek philosopher-scientists lived just prior to the time of Socrates in the city of Miletus on the Ionian coast of Asia Minor. They reasoned that there must be a single unifying substance that formed the basic stuff of nature. They asked, what is everything made of? How do things come into existence?
We are gonna start learning about a few things of the pre-Socrates, starting from Thales.
Thales, history's first philosopher, held that water was the fundamental substance and source from which all things proceeded. Water's potential for change, from solid to liquid to gas, and its pervasiveness on Earth convinced him that water formed the primary matter of the universe. Heraclitus. He defended the idea that change itself was the basis of reality. You cannot step twice into the same river, he wrote, for fresh waters are ever flowing in upon you. Yet, Heraclitus believed that an underlying form or guiding force permeated nature, an idea that resembles Hindu pantheism and anticipates the Christian concept of a great intelligence governing the beginning of time. For Heraclitus, the force was impersonal, universal, and eternal. Democritus, best known of the naturalist philosophers, developed the atomic theory of matter. For Democritus, the mind consisted of the same indivisible physical substances as everything else in nature. Pythagoras advanced an idea that departed from both the material and non-material views of the universe. Pythagoras believed that proportion, discovered through number, was the true basis of reality. According to Pythagoras, all universal relationships may be expressed through numbers, the truths of which are eternal and unchanging. Pythagoras was the founding father of pure mathematics. He was also the first to demonstrate the relationship between musical harmonics and numbers. His view that number gives order and harmony to the universe is basic to the principles of balance and proportion that dominate classical art and music. Hippocrates, the most famous of the Greek physicians and the so-called father of medicine, investigated the influence of diet and environment on general health and advanced the idea that an imbalance among bodily humors was the cause of disease. He insisted on the necessary relationship of cause and effect in matters of physical illness, and he raised questions concerning the influence of the mind on the body. He may also be deemed the father of medical ethics. The Sophists, masters of formal debate, the Sophists were concerned with defining the limits of human knowledge. The Thracian sophist Protagoras. They believed that knowledge could not exceed human opinion. B. Position summed up in his memorable dictum, "Man is the measure of all things." His contemporary, Gorgias, tried to prove that reality is incomprehensible and that even if one could comprehend it, one could not describe the real to others. Such skepticism was common to the Sophists, who argued that truth and justice were relative. What might be considered just and true for one individual or situation might not be just and true for another. Socrates and the quest for virtue. Athens' foremost philosopher Socrates vigorously opposed the views of the Sophists. Insisting on the absolute nature of truth and justice, he described the ethical life as belonging to a larger set of universal truths and an unchanging moral order. For Socrates, virtue was not discovered by means of clever but misleading argumentation, a kind of reasoning that would come to be called sophistry, nor was it relative to individual circumstances. Rather, virtue was a condition of the psyche, the seat of both the moral and intellectual faculties of the individual. Plato and the theory of forms. Socrates' teachings were an inspiration to his pupil Plato. Plato's theory of forms proposes that all sensory objects are imitations of the forms, which, like the simplest mathematical equations, are imperishable and forever true. Similarly, suggests Plato, justice, love, and beauty, along with other forms, stand as unchanging and eternal models for the many individual and particular instances of each in the sensory world. Aristotle and the Life of Reason. His teachings, which exist only as lecture notes compiled to students, cover a wider and more practical range of subjects than those of Plato. Aristotle argued that Plato's forms had to be grounded in matter, insisting that mind and matter could not exist independently of each other. He rejected Plato's notion of an eternal psyche. Nevertheless, he theorized that a portion of the soul identified with reason, and with the impersonal force he called the unmoved mover, might be immortal. Aristotle's interests spanned many fields, including those of biology, physics, politics, poetry, drama, logic, and ethics. The son of a physician, Aristotle was inspired by his education to gather specimens of plant and animal life and classify them according to their physical similarities and differences.